Hi, thanks for joining us again. Today we're going to start with a question that I think everyone has that has not been to our office before and experienced what we do here. As a new client, you've sent your paperwork in, you've gotten your first appointment scheduled. What does that first visit look like?
Good, okay. The first thing that people need to understand when they come to the office is that it's going to look and feel very different than a typical appointment at some other healthcare office. The first thing we want to do, and the real important part of what we do, is to look at the function of the autonomic nervous system. And we do that in a couple of different ways. The first thing the person is going to do is go through a heart rate variability test, which is a relatively simple computerized test where they wear a strap around their chest, lay down for a period of time, stand up for a period of time, and it really gives us a good look at their autonomic nervous system. And what we're talking about when we talk about the autonomic nervous system is the idea of the parasympathetic, which is the part of the system that allows us to rest, heal, and digest food, and eventually fall asleep if we sit down or lay down long enough. And then the sympathetic nervous system, which allows us to burn energy appropriately. It also puts us into the fight or flight syndrome. It wakes us up in the morning. It gives us energy through the day. And so our body vacillates between these two aspects all day long. And what they found at the clinic in Switzerland is that this is one of the first processes in the body that starts to shift as we become overloaded with different toxins or start to experience any kind of illnesses. We find that the regulation between with heart rate variability, the regulation between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic starts to shift on people. So the first thing we're going to do is do a simple computerized test. Then the person is going to come into my room, and we're going to do another analysis in regards to the autonomic nervous system. This one we do through muscle response testing, and it's really an organ reflex test that lets us put a little pressure on every organ of the body and get a simple muscle response test and give us an idea of how well that system is regulating or if there's any stressors on the organs. So really the first two things that happen is we look at the person's autonomic nervous system in a couple of different ways to see how that's functioning. The third step is to really determine what kind of primary stressors are affecting the autonomic nervous system and maybe throwing us out of balance a little bit and causing some symptoms. So it's really a threefold process that's pretty simple. It's just not easy. And it's always directed at the same thing, which is how's your autonomic nervous system functioning? What are the stressors that are putting us under such a load that the body starts to compensate in a way, and it will always try and compensate, but it starts to compensate in a way that might start to cause some symptoms or some dysfunction that we start to notice.
I think one of the other questions that people always have during that first initial visit is also, what can I expect moving forward? How fast am I going to feel better?
Good. That always depends on the state that the person's in, the state of their autonomic nervous system, whether they're actually regulating or not, because there's many different steps and stages in regulation, including what we call blocked regulation, where the body is no longer perceiving any outward stressors. It sometimes even loses the ability unconsciously to perceive the difference between laying down and standing up. And so when that happens, the person's in a pretty deep state of dysregulation, and we have to pull them up out of that, and it can take a fair amount of time to do that. What we try and do is nail down those primary stressors that are affecting that autonomic nervous system and start to remove those in whatever way we can. So to answer your question, well, how long is this going to take and what's the process? It really depends on the illness. It depends on the person's ability to comply, quite honestly, and go through some changes, which is hard for everybody, whether it's dietary changes or, sitting down with Dr. Carcetti and slowly working off of medications that they've been on for a long time, or even making dental changes that can be affecting our regulation. So for me, I always look at it like this. If we don't get a nice significant change for somebody within their symptoms in the first 3 months, then I'm pretty frustrated. And I figure out, okay, what are we missing? Because typically within the first 3 months of seeing somebody once a week, we're going to get a real big shift, and they'll start to see that, wow, I didn't know what this was going to be like, but now I'm seeing that we're making some changes and I'm feeling different.
Great. Thanks so much for giving us a realistic expectation of what we can look for those first appointments. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again.